A pleasure to meet all at last. And now, for this instance, I feel like that with all the indoor HJN related stuff, we might as well go through a more familiar setting. After all, it has been a while since this famous Nerf wall of mine has ever been showcased in a lot of content. And I will say that it's appropriate that I pick this location because very soon I am, believe it or not, going to be creating a sequel towards HJN's Flying with the Foam. That, of course, was a sub-series that I made where I overviewed various Nerf blasters in my collection. And because I've gotten a lot more of them since then, 4 years later, I eventually will have to revisit it for the purpose of having more blasters reviewed and eventually put out there. So that's just a big pro tip for what's about to come. So until that happens, I have something else in mind. This, of course, will circumnavigate about something known as elements. This is, of course, episode 2800, which alone is pretty awesome. So I will say, first off, that elements pertains to a lot of different everyday items, a lot of different metalloids, gases, among many other unique items. These, of course, were discovered ages ago and described ages ago in many different ways. Elements are, of course, the many different items found in the periodic table, that of which can include anything from gold, bismuth, iron, arginine, neon, cesium, and who could forget fluorine. So I feel like that at the same time that I could talk about elements here, it does bring me to a point where I can probably create an entire series based on the different periodic table of elements related elements. So perhaps that's what I'll do here. But elements, for the most part, are described based on their original names. In fact, their own descriptive name or symbol is based upon what exact type of elemental described was put together. For instance, the reason why iron has Fe on it was because it was vastly used for the creation of Ferris wheels. Yeah, Fe. That was basically one of iron's most popular usages back in the day. As a result, its symbol is seen as Fe for that reason. Gold is Au, and there's a number of other elements that I could talk about that also have symbols that are a bit different from their own names. But let's not forget, their namesake always starts with an origin story, and the origin story can vary depending on which element we're talking about. Moreover, how it was first discovered and or described. So perhaps what I'll do is I'll dedicate a few weeks worth of HJN to all of this. But I feel like other things are left unchecked. So there are other things to the elements just as well. You have a certain charge that, of course, correlates to their atomic level, and, of course, their atomic value number, which is also seen on every element. So while all these key components play an active role in identifying elements in the periodic table, they are, of course, just little tidbits for everybody out there to know. Other than what's to know about the element itself, there's plenty more that you can get just by looking at the table itself. Not to mention, there's a good amount of material that we know that was made possible because of an organized system like the periodic table. The fact is, we're able to get a hold of such elements out there. Potassium iodine, of course, was made possible because of the combination of iodine and potassium put together into one. But then we can also talk a bit about how various other elements, some of which that are toxic, like polonium or lead, or even really expensive things like astatine and gold. You could say that there's a lot of tidbits out there worth knowing, or ditties that can be described in this very episode. But I feel like that alone would take a while just to speak of. So we'll just leave this as the fact that, well, there's a lot to talk about regarding the periodic table. So what I'm going to do is a few weeks of HJN, we'll come together and talk a bit about the various elements in the periodic table. Now I might have a different format with this one, or maybe it's just basically a few clips of me and a few still shots of the various elements in hand. So starting tomorrow, that's what's going to happen. I'll see you guys later on HJN, and of course, I'll be back to regularly scheduled HJN programming once all of this elemental stuff is all over. I'll see you then.